Rockford, Illinois, a city of about 147,000 people, 88 miles north of Chicago. 4 people are dead and 7 people have been hospitalized after one man went on what's being called a stabbing spree. As of March 28, 2024, of the 7 people who are hospitalized, 4 are in critical condition. The state's attorney is not buying what Christian Soto is selling. According to the state's attorney, Christian Soto is able to recall each and every attack, and in his opinion, these are senseless killings. In other words, the state attorney is saying there is no motive for these crimes, so don't look for one. And in all fairness, to prosecute Christian Soto, the state does not have to show motive. It's not that simple for me, but that's not the purpose of this video. The purpose of this video is to address a different question that I have, that a lot of you may have, which is what happened? How is it that in a span of 21 minutes, Christian Soto was able to attack 11 people, killing 4 of those people? This crime spanned several blocks in one neighborhood, and it happened in broad daylight, beginning at approximately 1:14 in the afternoon, ending with Soto being arrested the same afternoon at 1:35. The primary murder weapon is a knife. However, Soto did attack 3 teenage girls, killing one of them with a softball bat. Soto also turned his pickup truck into a murder weapon, or at least an attempted murder weapon, because he ran over Jacob Schubach with his pickup truck. But I have not seen the pickup truck listed as a cause of death. We're going to discuss what happened, and you're going to hear that after being run over with the pickup truck, that Jacob Schubach actually got up and ran back into his house. According to authorities, and allegedly according to what Soto himself told police, the crime spree began at the Schubach home. Allegedly, Soto waived his Miranda rights and he spoke freely with investigators. And he said that once the paranoia set in, he went to the Schubach kitchen and he grabbed a knife. According to one witness, he saw young Jacob run outside of his home, clad in nothing but underwear, trying to cross the street and get away from a knife-wielding Soto who was chasing behind him. This witness stated that he saw Soto catch up to Jacob, start stabbing him and hitting him, and that Soto then got in his pickup truck, ran over Jacob, and somehow, according to the witness, Jacob managed to stand up and run back into his house, and Soto was still chasing behind him. Jacob does manage to make it back inside of the house, but so does Christian Soto. And once inside, he stabbed 23-year-old Jacob Schubach and his 63-year-old mother, Ramona Schubach, to death. But Christian Soto is far from done. Leaving behind 2 dead bodies, mother and son, at the Schubach home, he's now headed toward the 2200 block of Winnetka Drive, where he allegedly told investigators he, quote unquote, took out the mailman. Jay Larson was 49 years old, and he was a 25-year vet of the United States Postal Service. Larson was murdered in the front yard of a resident in the neighborhood while he was doing his job. He was delivering the mail. The witness said that while looking out his front door, he saw Soto approach Larson and he began hitting Larson. Then Soto ran back to his pickup truck, where he retrieved an orange-handled knife. The witness then described Soto attacking Larson with a knife. The two were struggling. Larson was fighting for his life, and unfortunately, he lost that fight. The witness said that Soto then approached him, but he was able to close his door and lock it before Soto could reach it. He then described watching Soto get in his pickup truck, run over Jay Larson, put the pickup truck in reverse, and run over Jay Larson again. With 3 dead people in his wake, Soto continues to wreak havoc on this neighborhood. He heads next to the 4000 block of Cleveland Avenue. Here is where Soto allegedly commits his first home invasion with a weapon. Still armed with a knife, Soto gets out of his pickup truck, heads into a nearby home where a woman and her two daughters are inside. Soto attacks all three with the knife. Reportedly, one of the women were able to back Soto out of the home by hitting him with a bottle. The woman and her two daughters survived the attack by Soto. Thankfully, the injuries that he inflicted upon them were non-life-threatening. Soto continues to move through this neighborhood. He allegedly commits his second home invasion with a weapon. He enters a home where inside is 15-year-old Jenna Newcomb, her sister, and their friend, who have all gotten together at the Newcomb house to watch a movie during their spring break. Jenna was the first to see Soto in the home. She reportedly began running toward the basement to warn her sister and their friend that someone had broken into the house. Following her, Soto cornered all three teenage girls in the basement, where he allegedly took an aluminum softball bat owned by Jenna and began striking the girls. Jenna's mother wants the world to know that Jenna died protecting her sister. Soto left one dead 15-year-old Jenna and two survivors, her sister and their friend, at the Newcomb home. He then next went to the home of Lindsay Craig, where he broke in, still wielding his knife. I've not been able to find how exactly Soto forced entry into Lindsay Craig's home, but he did. And once Lindsay Craig saw Soto inside of her house, she ran outside of her house, being chased by Soto, where he caught up with her in her front yard and he began to stab her. At around the same time, Keith Fernie, having just left a trigonometry class at the local college, is driving along in his Jeep along Cleveland Avenue, where he sees a bloody-faced Christian Soto stabbing Lindsay Craig in her front yard. Fernie got out of his vehicle and he placed his body in between Christian Soto and Lindsay Craig. Fernie begins to fight with Soto. He suffers multiple stab wounds in the process. Soto decides that he doesn't want this fight, and he tries to get away from Keith Fernie by stealing Keith Fernie's Jeep. Fernie runs after Soto, and he's trying to pull Soto out of his Jeep. Finally, a Winnebago County Sheriff's deputy showed up responding to a home invasion call. He got in between Fernie and Christian Soto, wrestling Soto to the ground and arresting him. It was 1:35 in the afternoon. What I've noted is that even though this crime spree happened in a very short span, it did happen in broad daylight. Tell me, in your neighborhood, would a resident have introduced a gun into that situation? Because I could definitely say that if Christian Soto's weapon of choice was a gun, there would be more dead people. However, I'm asking about the residents of the neighborhood themselves. I can tell you, I live in a nice, quiet neighborhood, but I happen to know that a lot of my neighbors are gun owners, and that if a woman was being stabbed in broad daylight in her front yard, I can't say that one of my neighbors would not introduce a gun into that scenario. What about you? If there was a Christian Soto in your neighborhood, do you think that one of the residents would have pulled a gun? What I've noted is that even though this crime spree happened in a very short span, it did happen in broad daylight. Tell me, in your neighborhood, would a resident have introduced a gun into that situation? Because I could definitely say that if Christian Soto's weapon of choice was a gun, there would be more dead people. However, I'm asking about the residents of the neighborhood themselves. I can tell you, I live in a nice, quiet neighborhood, but I happen to know that a lot of my neighbors are gun owners, and that if a woman was being stabbed in broad daylight in her front yard, I can't say that one of my neighbors would not introduce a gun into that scenario. What about you? If there was a Christian Soto in your neighborhood, do you think that one of the residents would have pulled a gun?